Welcome to the third pen font engine tutorial. We left the second tutorial as on the screen now. It's printing text, it's splitting it over lines, we could set the left margin, we could set the right margin. But it doesn't look great. Every letter is spaced out as if they were the same size, whereas obviously a letter like I is a lot thinner and should have less space around it. This is called proportional spacing, and to do this we need to know the width of each letter. Now I definitely don't want to go through every single costume and measure how many pixels each one is. And so I'm going to get the computer to do it for me. I'm going to make a custom block. I'm going to call it measure car widths. I'm going to make this run without screen refresh because it has to run fast. Or I'd rather it ran fast. And at the beginning of initialize, I'm going to make it measure the width of each character. I'm going to make it store those widths in a list, which I'm going to call character widths. For this sprite only, so I start it with a little letter C. Now this custom block is going to go through every costume and measure the width of every costume. So the first thing I want to do is make sure it's measuring them at full size, because the size may have been changed earlier if I've printed some text out at half size or something. Make sure the size is 100% and make sure the variable is empty, so we'll delete all of the character widths. Now we're going to start with the very first costume. Costume 2. The very first costume is character A. And to measure them we're going to need to show them. But don't forget this is all happening with refresh turned off, so we're not actually going to see this. It's going to be so fast we won't see that we've shown it because we're going to hide it at the end of the function. For now we'll show it. I'll set a Y value, I'll have it at the middle of the screen. And I'm going to loop forever. I will break out this loop when I reach the last costume, but for now I'll set it to forever. And now comes the clever part. I'm going to set the X value to 240. So it's going to display something that's actually on the edge of the screen. But I'm going to repeat until it's not touching the edge of the screen, and I'll move it left, 1 pixel at a time. Change X by -1. So it's going to start off touching the edge and it'll move a little bit to the left, and it'll say, am I still touching the edge? And it'll move left until it's no longer touching the edge. And I can tell by how many pixels it's moved left as to how wide the character is. So at that point, when it's not touching the edge of the screen anymore, I can add (240) minus the X position. That's how many pixels it's moved to character widths. When I've done that, I'm going to move on to the next costume. So it's going to store the width of each character in turn. And here I'm going to check that I haven't reached the last costume. So if the costume name not number, the costume name is, and what was my last costume called? It's called end marker dot. So if the costume name is end marker dot, then I've finished and I can hide the sprite again and stop the script. Now I know I said I was going to run this with refresh off, but I'm going to turn it, I'm going to make it so it's running with screen refresh for now, so that you can actually see what's happening. And it's moving each character along and filling the array, the list, with the width of each character. So you're not having to measure anything, you're getting the script to do it all for you. And that's really how you want things to work with the computer. So I, the 9th letter of the alphabet, should be quite thin, and indeed, it's only 7 pixels. So that is working great. I don't need to display that list anymore. And I'll change this custom block back to running without screen refresh, and you'll see the difference. You don't even see it happen now. So that's great. We've now got a list telling us how wide each character is. So let's use that list. Instead of changing X by the font width, we want to change it by, well, by the width of the character. So that's going to be item, and here's the cunning bit, is that the costume numbers match up with the list entries. So I can say item costume number of car width. Well, I can do that if I actually set the costume. Should be a good idea. So before I do that, I'll switch the costume, as I did down here, to character. I don't have character set there, so it's going to be letter J of text string. So switch the costume to the appropriate letter, change X by the width of that costume, and move on. So that's measuring to see whether it fits on the screen. And similarly down here, when I'm actually displaying it, instead of changing by font width, I'm going to be using list. So I'm already setting the costume, so I'm changing X by the costume number, the character width, time scale, and that should be all there is to it. I'll make this a bit larger again and run it again. Let's have a look at that in size. And yes, it's definitely using a lot less space around the thinner characters. So that looks much, much nicer. But we can let's do that at full size, 100%. Let's do it 200%. Let's do it really large. We'll take off the left and right border, so it'll use the defaults of the left side of the screen and the right hand side of the screen. Wow, that is big. You are standing in a forest. Okay, a little bit. Let's just do it normal, 100% size. You're standing in a forest beside large doors that block your way into the mountains. Lights sparkle around the entranceway, maybe magic lies beyond those doors. For the actual adventure, I would probably want it to appear a little smaller and further down the screen. I'd want it to appear in this little section here. So I would need to just set the top to, I don't know, maybe -80. Make the text a little smaller. A little bigger, so we can get a nice sized text. If you look at that on a full screen, you're standing in a forest beside large doors that block your way into the mountains. Lights sparkle around the entranceway, maybe magic lies beyond those doors. That's nice. It's quite hard to see. So I'm going to add an option to add shadowing to the letters. So I'm going to add another variable, text.shadow, question mark because it's a boolean, true or false. Okay, that is going to default to false. So when I first set up, I won't have shadowing turned on. So text shadow to false. And down here, where I'm actually displaying it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to display a shadow slightly to the left and slightly down from the font. So if shadowing is true, smaller so I can see what I'm doing. If shadow is true, then I want to move slightly to the left. So change X by -1. Change Y by -1. I want to set the brightness this time to -100 so that it's black. And then I'll stamp it, and then I'll change X and Y back again, so they're back where they started. Change X by 1, change Y by 1, and if I slip that code in here, so it's already got the costume, moves slightly left and down, changes to black, stamps the letter, moves back again, changes to white, stamps it again. So let's see how that looks. It doesn't look any different, but if I go back into the code and actually set the shadowing variable to true, hopefully this time we will see what happens. And you can see there is a black shadow around it, which makes it stand out slightly better. It's not great, but it is standing out better, so that's another option. And we'll leave that tutorial there for now, and we'll look at other effects we can add to the font engine in the next tutorial.